Most people spend their lives talking about change. They talk about the things they want to do, the things they want to accomplish, and the money, the status, and all that stuff in between. But when the opportunity actually shows up, 99% of people actually turn the other direction. And I noticed this pattern a whole bunch in my life and just, observing other people because I'm the type of person who likes to sit back and listen, not really talk that much. And I noticed that the reason why a lot of people carry this behavior is because they are addicted to scarcity. And I know this better than most people because I grew up in the projects in New York City. I grew up in the projects in New York City. My family doesn't really come from that much. My dad was a concierge and he worked as, a doorman basically, or a concierge for rich people in Fulton Street. And, my whole life, even though I had like a relatively good childhood, I'm not going to sit here and complain that I didn't, but not everything was sunshine and roses. And it's interesting coming from this background because you would expect by statistical senses that because I grew up this way and experienced this and went to a shitty public school that I would be pretty much a nobody. But I've rewritten my own core, my own self, and I have accomplished things that people dream of. And I think the one thing that it comes down to is decision making and how fast you're able to implement those decisions. And this is why I'm talking about the scarcity mindset, because when you base your decisions off of the things that you don't have or the person that you are right now, especially when it comes to change, you most likely make the decision that keeps yourself comfortable despite you wanting to change. And it's a little paradoxical because your mind is showing up to these places and it's kind of like telling you, fuck, I need to change, bro. Let's do this. Let's do something about it. And then once they actually start going up that ladder and they meet someone where they want to be, someone that they value or someone that is where they would like to be, all of a sudden, when the opportunity is presented to them, they start backing down and go the other way. And it's very interesting because this happened to me today, and that's the reason why I wanted to hop on here and make this episode, because I had a sales call today for my offer, an esoteric advisor for high performers. And, recently I started new channels, so I started a new Instagram, a new TikTok, and all that stuff, mainly because the accounts I was using before weren't, suitable for what I'm doing now. If you guys didn't know, I used to have a podcast known as The Mind's Eye, which it is still The Mind's Eye, but it's different now. I'm not with my boys anymore. And now I just do esoteric content. Now, what was interesting is that, this woman, she DM'd me and she was seeking some help. So I messaged her back. I was talking to her in the DMs. And I was like, you know what? Let's hop on a call and let's see how this will go. So I hop on the call and I show up about 10 minutes earlier because that's just how I am. I like to, make sure that I'm prepped for if something goes wrong or whatever. And I show up in the call. And the moment, I hop on the call with her, she's a little older. She's a little older woman. And when she hopped on the call, the mute button was on and she couldn't figure out how to unmute the mic. So I'm sitting there. She's in her car. She's driving. By the way, that's a horrible way to take a sales call in the first place, especially when someone's driving and stuff. I should have told her to go sit somewhere, but she was just coming out of somewhere. And I was like, fuck it. I mean, I'm here. Let's just do this, So basically, the moment the microphone became unmuted, she used that as a way to get out of this call. And she was like, oh, I see the resistance. I couldn't even figure out how to do this. So this must mean it's not for me. And I told her, well, hold on. Okay. Just because there's some resistance doesn't mean that it's not the right path. In fact, the path of least resistance usually tells you that you're going in a direction that requires you to be the same person. Now, the fact that there was some resistance showed that she knows what she's asking for and she's not tech savvy. So, of course, there's going to be some resistance. And I reframed it. I was telling her, well, maybe this path is shown to you, this resistance is shown to you to see if you actually want to do this. Because if everything was just sunshine and rainbows and every decision that you want to make, everybody would be fucking bawling. But that's just not the case. Not everyone is capable of... Well, everyone is capable of making the decisions. Not a lot of people are willing to make the decisions. And that's the clear distinction between those who achieve high things and those who stay the same and continue to live the life that they always live. Now, there's nothing wrong with choosing to be the same person, but it is wrong when you're trying to seek growth. Because when you're hopping on a sales, like a call, especially when it's about growth, because especially when you come to me, you see my content. I'm talking about how the universe works and all the little quirks in between. And I help high performers do more or achieve more while doing less. Like, that shit requires a huge identity shift in the way that you think and how the world operates. So of course there's going to be some resistance because the old version of you doesn't like change. It wants to stay the same. So fast forward. So I'm on the call with her. I managed to get her to stay on the call for about 35 minutes, right? So I'm going back and forth. She's telling me that she wants to build this community and all this stuff, all the things you naturally hear from someone who's seeking like the next step. Like, they know, they've been thinking about it. She told me she'd been thinking about this for 6 months. A clear characteristic of someone who wants change but isn't willing to take the step. Okay, so we're going back and forth on this, and I'm sitting there, I'm listening, I'm letting her, she's talking, I'm just sitting there, I'm listening, and then immediately, once like we started talking for a little bit, I already knew I couldn't charge my usual container. And the reason why I took this call in the first place is because, sometimes you just take that call that is like, you know what, let me see what I can do for this person. Because usually I have a process to vet people before they even get on a call with me so that I prevent stuff like, what happened today from happening. But nonetheless, she gets on the call and, we're talking back and forth. And then I knew I couldn't charge her my main container, okay, based off the answer she was giving me, but I wasn't going to turn her away right away because I wanted to test this hypothesis. And it's not really a hypothesis because it is true. This is real psychology. This isn't like some bullshit woo-woo. This is real stuff, okay? So what I did is, instead of offering the full price, I lowered the barrier to entry, told her this is what it is. I offered her the bridge, and even though I offered the bridge, she was still unwilling to cross it. Now, you could sit there and say, well, what kind of reframes and what kind of objections that you use and blah, 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 bullshit. I know how to do sales. I've been doing it for a very long time. Okay, so the thing is that no matter what fucking words or reframes that you say, if someone's not willing to cross the bridge, they won't cross the bridge, because it all comes down to decision making. And if you're not willing to make the decisions as the person that you want to be, then you can't make those decisions, because there's this thing in the psychology is that you live up to the identity that you give yourself, right? So if you enter a call or something of this nature from a scarcity mindset that, I'm holding on because I want security, I want, guarantees and all that stuff, then you cannot physically or mentally put yourself in a position of the person who you want to be, who makes decisions a different way. Because at the end of the day, excuse me, everyone knows what they need to do. Everyone knows the habits that are keeping them stuck. Everyone knows the things that they think, the things that they say, the people that hang around that are not helping them grow. Everyone knows these things. But people are not willing to actually do the things that requires change. Why? Because change is scary. Okay? Even though you know that this is what you need to do, you're willing to get a little lower. You're willing to set yourself back. You're willing to let things play out the way that you know they shouldn't play out because you're scared of change. And this scarcity mindset is what kills 99% of people from actually achieving the things they want to achieve. Now, what's interesting is even though the bridge was offered, of course, things didn't pan out. And I knew they weren't going to pan out. The reason why I even offered this was because I wanted to see that if someone who knows they need change and been trying to figure their shit out for 6 months on end, doesn't know what the hell they're doing, comes to someone who they want to be in the position that I'm in, and they still wouldn't cross the bridge. So it's just interesting to see the psychology play out in real time. And I wanted to come on here and talk about this because, there's been so many times or so many places or events in people's lives that could have changed the trajectory of their entire life for the better or for the worse, mostly for the better. And yet, when we are presented those opportunities, we turn tail and run the other way, And this happened to me in my own life, aside from the sales call, when I first wanted to start this show, the podcast. As many of you guys have known, because, my actual podcast will be listening to this. So the guys that are listening since day one know this story, but I'm going to say it again for my YouTube audience. But before I even started the Mind's Eye, I spent a fucking year just talking about it with my boy Santiago. I was like, yo, bro, we should start this podcast. Basically what happened, all right, let's get to the nitty gritty of it. I took shrooms, I tripped balls. Okay. So I went to this frat house with my boy, Devin, and me and Santiago, we took these shrooms. We took an eighth. Okay. And probably the worst place to fucking do shrooms like this, especially in a frat house with a bunch of dudes that I barely ever even knew. So me and Santiago, we go over there because we're like, fuck it, let's just try it, It's the right time, I guess. So we went to go try shrooms. Tripping balls, bro. We were watching like the nature fucking documentary, and Santiago, like, he was looking at the screen and he was like, yo, did the gorilla come down twice? And I was like, no. And then that's when I knew it started hitting him, because he just got up and just went straight to the fucking bathroom. And I was like, oh shit, is he good? And then seeing him trip that hard started making me trip pretty hard. So we're going to this fucking bathroom, and he's like playing with his pockets, and he was like, yo, bro, like my pockets feel like they have vomit in them. Did I vomit in my pants? And I was like, no, bro, you're good. And then seeing him act like that was like, holy fuck, man, this is going to hit me mad hard. And it hit me hard. It fucking did, because the next 2 hours, me and him were walking around this custodial trash can. You ever seen those trash cans that the custodian like whips around? It's like a giant fucking trash can with a bunch of supplies on the side. Yeah. For some reason, this frat house had access to such a custodial trash can. I don't know how the fuck they got it. But I'm sitting there and me and him are walking around this trash can, right? Back and forth. And we look at each other. We're like, yeah. And then we kept walking around, and we both acknowledged that we're walking around this fucking trash can. And out of nowhere, well, it felt like we couldn't leave the loop. And if you guys don't know, if you take shrooms, one of the side effects is living a loop. Over and over and over again, and you recognize you're in a loop, but for some reason you can't fucking leave, And then out of nowhere he looks up and he's like, yeah, and then fucking bolts in the other direction. And then I saw him do that, and I was like, holy shit, I can do that too. I go out in the other direction. So I go in the direction, and in this room is a ping pong room with a bunch of it's a beer pong room, not a ping pong room. It's a beer pong room. There's a bunch of red Solo cups everywhere. He's on the other side. He has like this fucking blanket over him. He looks like a ghost, and he's walking back and forth in this corner in this direction. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, whoa. And I'm like tripping pretty hard at this point. Like, this is like the peak area and stuff like that. And, he's fucking walking back and forth. He was throwing things at me, and it looked like it was like mad objects and stuff. And then he just walks away, and then he goes to sleep on the couch for like another few hours. And I'm stuck in the room, in that same ping pong room. And then I watched his boy, my friend Devins, I watched his boys come home like 3 different times. Maybe it was the shrooms fucking with me, or they actually just left and came back 3 different times. I don't know. Point is, I was tripping pretty fucking hard. And I don't even know why I'm even talking about this right now, but I'm just going to keep fucking going because it is what it is. Oh yeah, I remember now. So the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because in that moment, I felt that I was revolving around my shit. Big spoiler alert, shrooms have a funny way of showing you like literally what your biggest problem is. And, me and him wanted to start this podcast. And that's the reason why we started the podcast. We took the shroom trip and we were like, fuck it, bro, let's do it. Because we noticed that me and him would have these conversations and people would just listen. I didn't know why. I mean, I didn't see myself as special at that point in time, but especially in college, me and him would be just going back and forth about these crazy concepts. And then the people in the room would just be like, whoa, like, you guys are like on some shit. And I was like, really? Like, I just smoked a blunt, bro. I don't know if this is like normal language or not. Apparently it wasn't. But I spent a year talking about it with him instead of actually doing it. And in that year, I wasted a year of prime time, especially on TikTok, where I could have blown up much faster than I initially did. And that fear of scarcity, because I thought that I needed to do it with him in order for this to work. So instead of pushing the blame onto myself, I started offloading the blame onto him. And because I offloaded the blame onto him, I didn't take responsibility for the dream that I set out to do, because it is my idea that I wanted to start this podcast. And he was like, yeah, let's just do it. It didn't pan out. And the one thing that changed the entire thing was a decision. A decision to finally get up and say, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyways. And if you come with me, you do. And if you don't, you don't. That was it. So that one day, I remember very clearly, it was during COVID. We had the COVID money and shit. Like, all the payments came through and stuff. And I had some stuff saved up. So I went to the Sam Ash Music Store on 34th Street. It's closed down now, by the way. It sucks that it's closed down. But I went there for all of my gear, even this mic. I got this mic at that Sam Ash Music Store. So I go down there and I, buy all the gear. I buy the audio interface. I buy these mics, these headphones. And then I go to my boy Sean. And I told him, you'll come downstairs. Like, I was in his building. He comes downstairs and I just hit record. And I was like, sit down. And that was the first ever episode of The Mind's Eye. Now, if I didn't do that, I have no idea where I would be today. And the thing is, hearing me say that, people would be like, okay, so how do you stop the scarcity mindset? And the thing is that scarcity comes from fear. Okay, whenever you're trying to make a change that changes pretty much your entire self, because that's what happens when you make a decision to better yourself, the current version of you has to die. Okay, it's no sugarcoating it. The current version of yourself has to die, because the version of you that you want to be has habits, beliefs, and experiences and things that they do every single day that the current version of you is not doing. When that happens, fear is triggered, and your mind uses fear to keep you in check. If you guys watch my whiteboard breakdowns, like, you would, know how this, goes down deeper. But your mind uses fear to keep you in check. And the reason why it does is because it's protecting your identity. Okay, your mind has an identity. It uses that to identify itself and use it as a frame of reference to go about this reality. Now, when that's triggered, the fear comes up and you have either a fight or flight response. That is it. And people choose most of the time to flight because it's easier to run away than to fight. Now, if I didn't do that, if I didn't choose to actually do that, and that's the thing, like when you don't get rid of fear, you can only work with it. So you gotta weigh out the options. And this is where critical thinking comes in. This fucking, people don't, what you think is common sense apparently is not. So you got to think about the factors, because when you're making a decision, okay, especially when you're making a decision that requires growth, because when you come to me, you're coming to grow. You're not coming to, talk about, tactics and shit. I don't deal with that stuff. I deal with growth, okay? So when you come to me and you want growth, it's going to require death. Okay. And it sounds like a little well, bro, like chill out. But no, bro, it's true. It's true. It requires your death, and it requires you to do the things that you know you need to do. And now I'm going to hold you accountable as we go through it. Okay. But you can't get rid of fear. You can only work with it. So if someone asks the question, well, how do you make these decisions? It's actually pretty simple. You weigh out the odds. Okay, would you rather be this or would you rather be that? So instead of using your vision, oh, I want to have this, you can't make decisions like that. You have to make decisions on which causes more pain. Being the same person and being in the same position 5 years from now, or taking the leap of faith and trying something new. Now, we humans naturally fear the unknown, which is why most people don't take these steps. But the thing is that there's so many people who have walked this path and who walks this path, so many testimonials of people who do these things. So there's proof out there. The thing is that you have to still make the decision to cross the bridge. And most people don't like making those decisions because it requires something of them. A lot of people like things to be easy. They want things to be fast. They want things to be easy. And I think it's just the society that we live in, man. I mean, and maybe it's the monkey brain and our minds that just want things to be fast, easy. Amazon, 1 day delivery, fucking Uber Eats. I can get a whole meal ordered here, cooked and ready in like 15 minutes. Everything is just fast now. Internet, I can download a fucking 4K movie in 2 minutes. That someone spent years making. You know what I mean? So when it comes to making these decisions, you have to really ask yourself, what's going to cause more pain? Because that's the thing. Regardless of what decision you make, pain is going to be involved. Because if you didn't make this decision, now you're going to spend the next 6 months wondering, damn, I should have made that decision. What if I did this? What if I did that? And then you're going to spend your life regretting a decision that you knew you should have made, but still didn't fucking make. Or you can have the pain of growth, making the decision and then dealing with the bullshit that comes with after. And if you ask me, the bullshit that comes after is way better than the comfortability of being the same. Because I don't know about you guys, but when I think about, being the same person I am today 5 years from now, that shit is fucking scary, bro. That shit is fucking scary. You ask me what, that is true scary shit, bro. It's not these fucking ghosts or Pennywise or Vecna, if you guys watch Stranger Things, but no. It is waking up every day knowing that you could have had a better life, knowing that you could have made better decisions, and then on your deathbed wishing that you can go back in time and make the decision that you knew you should have made. So the thing you can do to move forward from this is understanding that the scarcity mindset is what blocks pretty much 99% of all the opportunities coming to you. Because at the end of the day, you have to make those decisions, okay? No one else can make the decision for you. You can always be influenced by things. You can always be influenced by events, people. I mean, in fact, this book right here, Reality Transurfing in 78 Days, this shit right here is amazing. And in this book, they actually talk about this concept of the pendulums. I actually spoke about this in the whiteboard breakdowns. I forgot what video it was. But you're constantly going through life, and you're constantly going to have, well, basically the pendulums, right? Oh shit, a pendulum swings back and forth, so energy must swing back and forth. But the way the book explains it is that there's these beings or these things, these events that want to extract energy from you. Okay, but here's the thing: that only happens if you allow it to happen. So everything comes back down to a decision. So whenever you're trying to seek growth, right? Think about it this way. The person who seeks growth and asks for the thing that they want immediately is usually weak. The person who seeks growth will ask for stronger legs or stronger will to keep going. Because at the end of the day, when you're talking about growth, it requires a complete reinvention of who you are, because the version of that you are right now is not equipped to have that thing. So you have to go through trials and error. You have to go through these trials and tribulations in order to have the skills and necessary wisdom to become a person who's actually able to do the things that you want to do. So let's say, for example, for me, I wanted my podcast to be top 1% in the world. I wanted the Mindset to be the best podcast in this niche, in this space, so that people will come here and watch it no matter what's going on. In order for that to happen, that's what I asked for. In order for that to happen, I had to go through a year, almost 2 years of nothing, months of shit going wrong, accounts being shut down, my fucking TikTok not working because I said a word that they didn't like, whatever, right? Now, if I didn't gain that experience, how was I going to be a person that was capable of building a podcast to the top 1% in the world? I wouldn't be. That's the answer. So I had to go through that. I had to go through spending hours editing a 1-minute video for it to get 0 views, or for it to only get a few hundred views. I had to go through, making time, spending my life doing this while I worked at North Face in Soho, like, you have to go through these trials and tribulations. A lot of people want growth to be fast and easy, but it's just not the case, man. You're going to have to sacrifice something. You must be willing to sacrifice yourself in order to get something else, because this world, let me explain it to you this way. If you understand the true natures of the laws of the universe, what you would understand and come to an understanding is that everything is a constant exchange of energy, okay? If I were to drop this phone, I let go because I raised it with its potential energy, dropped it, and the kinetic energy just went back to 0. The vibration of this phone just vibrated on my hand, the energy's gone, okay? Everything is a constant state of energy exchange. So if I want something that's going to be very powerful, a lot of energy that goes into it, then you must be willing to sacrifice something of equal energy, or if not more, in order to get the thing that you want. Because it doesn't just spawn. It doesn't just come out of fucking nowhere. You can't ask for these things and then be like, okay, well, now it's going to just happen. Okay? It requires an exchange. So when you understand this, now you understand that in order to get the things you want, you must be willing to sacrifice. Now, that sounds fucking crazy to someone who's listening on the outside right now, is just tuning in to what I'm saying. No, you don't have to sacrifice your fucking soul or do these weird rituals. No, you just have to be willing to sacrifice days that you would usually go out and have fun and spend that on doing the work. You would have to sacrifice going to certain events, certain family events to do the work. You have to sacrifice those days to put in the reps, put in the hours to become the person that you always want to be. Okay, that's what you have to sacrifice. Okay, you're not sitting down with a fucking, altar, singing these rituals at 12 in the morning. Like, that's not how it is. You are choosing something that you're going to work towards, and you're sacrificing energy to get there. Now, by the time you get to this new location or this new place, the person that you once were no longer exists. Yes, the old habits are there and they can easily come back, but the version of you who gets to where they want to be is no longer the old person because the sacrifice was made. So when you're seeking growth and stuff, be expected to, make a sacrifice, okay? Another thing I notice about people who operate from scarcity is that, they have this vision, okay, that they want to achieve. And because they lived in this vision so long that in their mind, they've already achieved it. Now, what do I mean by that? You see, when you have a vision about something and you're constantly living in the vision over and over and over again, your mind creates dopamine. Now, because your mind can't tell the difference between a strong visualization and an actual reality, your mind thinks that you already did it. So there's no urgency for you to actually go out and do something. Okay? That's why a lot of these types of people, they would sit down and be like, oh man, this is what I want. This is what my life to be. But when it comes down to doing the actual work and making the sacrifice necessary to get there, now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, but I could, but I also couldn't. And, I actually like being the way I am right now. They may not consciously say it, but their actions speak otherwise. Remember, actions speak louder than words. Okay? So even though you might be telling yourself, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that and do that, but you actually don't fucking do anything, well, your actions speak louder because your subconscious mind is always watching. Okay? So if you tell yourself that you're going to get up and make a change, and then the next morning you wake up and you don't get up and make a change, well, your subconscious mind is going to associate you with someone who doesn't believe what the fuck they're saying. So it's not going to give you that urgency to go out and do the things. And this is a trap, okay? Vision can blind you. I don't know if people realize that, but vision is like a literal light, okay? Like imagine staring at the sun and having the light of the sun in your fucking face. You can't see shit. But when it's far away enough and you got a telescope, now you can see the details of the sun. And the reason why that is because when you're in a vision state and you're constantly just looking up at the vision, because that's basically what it is, because you're looking up, right? You can't see the steps forward. So you're walking in all different directions and you can't get to your vision because you're constantly focused on shit. You're focused on the actual destination, not the steps to get there. So when you are trying to change or get this vision, what you need to focus on is the work necessary. And, people will click on this and expect some fucking hack or some crazy discernment that I'm going to give you. And that's just not true. Okay? Whenever you're clicking on these videos that claim to give you an impossible result in just 20 minutes, it's just to hack your attention. Remember, this is a game. Okay? Social media, YouTube, TikTok is all a fucking game. Okay? It's the game of who can hack whose attention for the longest time. Because at the end of the day, these platforms' goal is to keep you on the platform long enough. So that's why clickbait is rewarded. But I'm going to be here to tell you that there's no easy way out. There's only through. I don't know why I'm just burping so fucking much, man. I didn't even eat anything today. Okay. So, my God. So, there's no easy way out. There's only you decide to do something or you fucking don't. That's it. Okay. So if anyone's claiming that they can do this crazy thing for you in this amount of time, or if this one thing is going to change your life, it's all bullshit. So at the end of the day, it's you who makes the decisions. You are doing the work. You are putting yourself out there. If you're not willing to do that, well, you're not going to be able to reap the benefits of the person who's doing that. I remember when I first got into this community, I got very distasteful for the new age spiritual people. I don't even consider myself like a spiritual reality person. I just consider myself an esoteric advisor. Okay, I understand. I study these things. But I remember when I first came into this space, there were so many people blowing up on TikTok who were just like, oh, like, I can teach you like the laws and the nature of the universe. Most of them got that shit wrong because they were just telling people things that were impossible to achieve, but they wanted, they were just telling them things so they can just get clicks and get the money and all that stuff. But I'll be here to tell you that if something is easy, if the change is easy to make, okay, and it doesn't require you to sacrifice anything, 9 times out of 10, it's too good to be fucking true. Okay? If you go into a deal with someone and they're like, I'm going to get all this done for you, all you need to do is just sit back. 9 times out of 10, it's too good to be fucking true. And I'm talking about in the stages of growth, because there's people you can hire to do work for you. But at the same time, okay, let me give you a little story here. I remember when the Mind's Eye was starting to blow up on TikTok. We hit our first 20 million view video, and we started getting million views after that, left and right, easy, right? We started having a bunch of DMs of people who were like, oh, yo, listen, your videos are great, but they could be better. So I'm going to edit these videos for you. And they said they would take over the whole process. All right. So that means that they were going to go into the episodes, clip out the best moments. Maybe I just didn't hire the best clipper at the time. But at that time, they were going to be like, oh, it's all hands off. And I was like, fuck it. I mean, we got some cash from these videos. I mean, why might as well let's see what happens. Long story short, it didn't really work out because the person didn't really, clip them the best way, and they just weren't really that good at understanding what makes a good video. That's why that shit pretty much didn't really go anywhere. In fact, our views tanked after we hired that person. Okay. So you got to understand, when you're asking for growth, you must be willing to do the work. Vision blinds you. I remember, listen, I'm a visionary. I literally have it tatted on me. I'm fucking, I'm serious. Look at this. Hold on. Right here. As you can see, this is a rose and it says Visual Nadia. Now, I realize now that, because I wanted it in Latin and Google fucked me back then because Visual Nadia is, visionary for a woman, but it's supposed to be Vision Audio. And I didn't realize that until a year later after I got it tatted on me, because what set the bar off for that was Santiago. And I don't understand why Santiago didn't know this. He speaks fucking Spanish and I don't. Okay, well, another thing about me, I don't fucking speak Spanish. I understand it, but I don't speak it. But he speaks Spanish, and Latin and Spanish are very close to each other, and he didn't understand that also had masculine and feminine qualities to the language, just like fucking Spanish. And he got it tatted on him too, so whatever. And then his cousin got it tatted on him. So now we got 3 grown-ass men walking around with Vision Nadia instead of Vision Audio, which is what it should be. Point is... I literally have that shit tatted on me. So I understand. It's easier to think about something than to actually do it. Why? Because when you think about something, you can literally put yourself there instantly. That's why I say your mind is 4th dimensional. You're able to literally bypass time and put yourself in a place in time with everything that you want instantly. Okay? When you do that, and it's not wrong to think about the goal all the time, but what you must do is keep the goal in mind, focus on the steps forward, because it's easy to get blinded by the vision instead of doing the work, because the work is boring. That shit is boring. You know how boring it is and annoying it is to make this video and then listen to myself say the same shit for an hour straight because I'm the one cutting up these videos? I don't even have a team anymore. It's just me. I'm doing all this stuff because I know that I can do it at 100% capacity. Okay? And that shit is fucking annoying. But this is the work that's necessary, that it needs to be done to get the things that I want. Okay? So if I didn't do the boring work, who's going to fucking do it? Nobody's going to do it. And if you hire someone to do the work that you don't even know how to do yourself, how can you delegate that properly? Does that make any fucking sense to you? Now, here's the thing. There's nuances to situations. But for the most part, when it comes to growth and online business and stuff like that, if you don't know how to do the job that you're hiring someone for, chances are you're not going to delegate it properly. And the problems that that person has, you wouldn't be able to solve. And you're just in a shit cycle. But oh my God. So yeah, when you have a goal, when you put yourself in that position, your mind gets instant dopamine. And that instant dopamine is what stops people from actually doing the boring work, because the boring work doesn't give you dopamine. It gives you boredom. You need to master the boring work. In fact, the boring work is where the millions come from. Okay? When you do the boring work and you're just in boredom, sometimes I just sit in silence. I actually think silence is one of the most powerful tools. That's where you can hear your own intuition. You can solve problems better because you're not constantly being injected with so much noise from social media, different perspectives, all telling you the same shit in different ways. When you do the boring work, that's where the real magic comes in. And when you're operating from a scarcity mindset, that doesn't sound too pretty. So when you're operating from a scarcity mindset and you're going into these rooms, these containers where change is required, and then you have this false reality of what it would be like. Okay? Because why people seek help is because they have pain. And they expect that pain to be immediately relieved the moment upon exchange of currency, money, and then you get into the container. But that's not true. Often, more times than not, when you go into a container like the one that I'm in, and a lot of people are in, when the person comes to learn that, oh shit, I got to do work. Now it's all fucking, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, or I got to talk to my husband, whatever. Point is that people like things to be easy, but the boring work is where the shit happens. And if you're not willing to do the fucking boring work, well, no one's going to do it for you. Because at the end of the day, these containers, these coaching containers, we're here to be guides. We're not going to fucking we can only help you as much as you want to help yourself. I can't go into your head and make you make certain decisions. I can help you. I can guide you. I can influence you to make some type of decision. But you, at the end of the day, have to make the conscious choice, just like in the pendulums in this book right here. You decide what you give your energy to. If you are having a bad day at work, you decide if you're going to have a bad day at work by telling yourself you're having a bad day. So, the one thing that you could take away from this episode that I want you to really walk away with is understanding that when it comes to change, you have to be willing to cross the bridge no matter how scary it is. Because what's lying at the end of the bridge is just a mirror. Okay, and this mirror is going to reflect back to you the stuff that you don't want to see. And we spend our lives, avoiding the mirror. And what's funny is that reality is a mirror. Okay, the mirror doesn't smile first unless you do. Everything that you're going through in your life is just a reflection of the decisions that you made and the actions that you took. So wherever you are right now is the result of the amalgamation of all the fucking decisions and things, beliefs of everything that you are as a person. You made very specific choices in certain situations, certain reactions, certain things that you said has led you to where you are right now. And that's being reflected back to you. When you're asking for change, the mirror is being held up to your face and is showing you all the things that need to be purged in order for you to step forward. Now, when this mirror is held up And that is my job as the person to show you this fucking mirror. Once you see the mirror, now you're seeing all the stuff that you don't want to see. And now you don't want to make the change. But you got to remember, just because fear and resistance is showing up doesn't mean that that's not the path forward. Okay? Use your discernment, use your decision making, understand that this is the game. Okay? You want to level up? All right, bet. This is what you got to do. That's it. If you think that coming into containers like this is going to just give you instant relief on your pain or just change you completely the moment things start coming up, that's not how this works. I show you the mirror. I show you what needs to be shown, because the thing about it is that it's hard for us to see our own shit. Okay? It's hard because you're living in it. So you attach emotions to the things that you're going through. You attach yourself to these things. Someone on the outside looking in can look at your situation and be like, okay, this right here, don't fucking do that. This right here, stop doing this, change that, because there's no emotional attachment to your problems. Okay, that's why people hire mentors and advisors, because they can see them, they can see you from a different perspective and show you what you need to do in order to get there. Most times, 9 times out of 10, you need to do those things. It's just easier when someone who you admire or someone in the position that you want to be in is able to point those things out for you. Is able to point those things out for other people who you might also know. So take that as it is. If you want change, make sure you're willing to do the things necessary for change. The mirror is going to be fucking ugly the moment it shows up, but don't run away. In fact, run towards it. Run towards the pain. It's in our natural ability to start running away from pain, because that's just a fight or flight mechanism. That's how we stayed alive our entirety. But we don't live that way anymore. Okay, we're not fucking chasing lions. We're sitting down and we're waiting for the next fucking part of Stranger Things to come out. You know what I mean? Like we live a completely different fucking life right now. It's insane. So the battles that we face when it comes to, we have the privilege to actually sit down and think about these things, mentally upgrade and all those things. So when we sit down and we're presented these opportunities, it's in your nature to start running because you want to run away from pain. But start running towards pain, because pain creates movement. Okay? That's the one thing, is that, when people are trying to make decisions out of scarcity, is that, one, there isn't enough pain yet. Because here's the thing, okay? I tend to work with very interesting people. And what I noticed is the people who make the fastest decisions understand what's required of them and have enough pain where they're like, I don't want to feel this shit anymore. Please fucking help me. Those people make decisions very fast, and those people tend to be the ones who actually succeed. Now, the people who come in and they want this same transformation, they have the pain, but it isn't enough for them to convince themselves that this is the path they must go down. Because even though they're going to go down and, even though they're experiencing the pain and they're seeking help, the way they think about the pain is what's stopping them from actually doing the things or making a decision. And the decision is where the real magic happens. Because, like I said, with this woman in the sales call earlier, is she felt the pain. She needs help. She knows she needs help. She knows it's going to take a long time to try to get the things that she wants if she didn't have any help. But the way she thought about her situation is what caused her to end up leaving this call without making the decision necessary. So when you're in this position, when you're thinking about change, you're going to have the two people come up. You're going to have the person that comes up and is like, listen, do we really need to do this? And you're going to have the person that's like, but what if I don't do it? What if this? What if that? Listen to yourself, because you're on the fucking call. You're there. You're doing something. I mean, when I'm saying the call, I'm not talking about a sales call. I mean, you're on the call. You're on the spot. Okay, you're on the spot to make a fucking decision. And what I've learned after working with people who makes a shit ton of money and people who don't make a lot of money, the one thing that separates those who succeed and those who don't is decision making and the speed in which they implement those decisions. Okay? Because you got to change, you got to reframe your mind. And reframing your mind is a very interesting skill to have. And I suggest people who are listening to this learn sales, because sales is the one fucking place where you have to learn how to reframe people's mind in order to get them to make a decision. Okay. But at the same token, if someone doesn't want to make a decision, they just don't. So the thing is that you learn how to reframe yourself, because when you're able to reframe yourself, you're able to weigh the pros and cons of a decision and make the decision that's best suited for you. Because that's best suited for you. Now, for example, let's say you want to make $1 million a month, right? Now, let's say you meet someone or you're on this path and you know growth is required. Instead of thinking about the goal of having the $1 million, think about what happens if you stay the same and don't change. What happens in that reframe is that your mind switches fuel from a want to a need, because what separates the decisions is, do you want this or do you need it? You got to remember, human psychology is a very real fucking thing. A lot of people tend to forget that their minds are literally the result of human evolution. Okay? So when you want something, there's no urgency. There's no like, oh, fuck, I need this or I'm going to die. You know, when you want something, it's more of like, yeah, I just want something. Yeah, I want that. You don't need it. Okay. When you go buy an expensive watch, you don't need it. You want it. But when you buy food, you need food. So you always buy food. You understand what I'm saying? You got to reframe your mind. When you're looking at houses, there's expensive houses, and then there's just a place where you can live. You don't need a giant fucking house. You want it. You do need somewhere to sleep at night. You understand what I'm saying? So you need to change your wants from a need by using fear. When you understand how to use fear, you can use the alchemy of fear in your mind to actually make better decisions, because fear creates movement. And when you're in that state of fight or flight, there's a bunch of energy that's building up. And that split decision of flight or fight is what changes lives, because usually that mechanism only comes up when they sense danger. So why do you feel danger when you're about to make a decision that's about to change your life? It's kind of counterintuitive if you really think about it. Like, you know, change needs to happen. You're sitting there spending months thinking about something and you know it needs to fucking happen. But your mind senses danger when the change is presented to you. It's not the person who's presenting the way out. It's you. You are sensing danger because you know that the moment you make this decision, the version of you that you are right now needs to change and it needs to die. You got to remember, your mind like associates your identity as a living person. So when you change that, that person dies, and that person is clinging on to life. It wants to stay alive. When you shift focus, you shift your frame of reality, you shift your frame of reference, and that person's fucking dead. Okay? This is not like some, you know, like, oh, this person's dead. No, that person's dead. That's what it is. And that person wants to cling on to life. So it's going to use fear and cause you to make decisions that are harmful to you, even though you know you need change, because it would rather stay alive than to see you win. Okay? It would rather make you make the decision that you know is not good for you because they don't want to see you win. So what's interesting, as you get more into the psychology of, people who make decisions this way, you start to really understand yourself more, because the best way to learn is to see someone else go through something. I mean, after all, that's how we found out how mushrooms are deadly and some are not. Someone had to eat that fucking polka dot red mushroom and then they died, and then we were like, don't eat that. So that's the thing. You can either learn from someone's experiences or you can go through them yourself with no frame of reference. And to be honest, if you want to optimize your life for the best possible results, it's dumb to not look at other people and see what results they get. So if you're trying to achieve a certain thing, look how other people did it. Obviously there's frauds out there, there's nuances, I get it. Okay, but at the end of the day, not everything is fucking fake. I remember I went through that process. A lot of people go through that process when they're learning about all this shit and then they just think everything's fucking fake. That's not the case, man. It's just your mind is just not registering the possibility of people having the things that you want. I use that as fuel, man. I use that as fuel. Imagine someone else. Oh my God, man. I remember 2 years ago, I went to Podfest. It's a podcast event for like the biggest podcasts in the world. They come down. Well, biggest podcast event. It's in Florida. They usually change it. Sometimes it's in Atlanta, but it was in Florida the time that I went. Me and my boy Sean, we went down there. We got invited down there. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, these fucking people have money? Like, you'll be surprised the types of people, the types of characters that just have millions of fucking dollars. And you're sitting there and you're like, how the fuck does this person have money? Textbook, they are like, they shouldn't have fucking money, but they do. Right? I remember they're sitting there. I'm just sitting there like observing these people. And I'm like, it was crazy because, that day, I was looking to buy this exact camera that I'm using right now, which is a Sony FX30. We were looking around Orlando and we were trying to buy the camera that day because we wanted to film the stuff inside, the Podfest, right? So we're going around and we went to Podfest, pretty much everyone was just trying to sell us something. And it was more geared towards people who want to start a podcast. And, I'm not at that stage at that point. I was like, why the fuck? I don't need any of these things. So we were just going through the event, cruising and stuff like that. So nothing really hit me the way I wanted it to until we went out and went to this bar in the back of the Podfest building. And if you guys know you guys probably don't know what I'm talking about, but there's this bar in the back. It's like a tiki bar. It's like, the doors are open, the bar is there. So I go in there and, I order this rum runner. Oh my God, that shit was crazy, man. That shit fucked me up. But I ordered that and I see this table and there's these people, like there was like fucking 10, 15 people. No, probably like 10 people at this table, all sitting around like a round table. And then I go up to them and I'm like, so you guys are in Podfest? And then we got a seat at the table. That's pretty much it. And I look around, like two people I could see why they have money. Patrick and, if you're listening, like that guy's a real estate person. I can see why he has money. But the other people, I'm looking at them and I'm like, how the fuck do you have any cash, bro? It's crazy. Point is, the one thing that separates those people from this is decision making. That's it. Those people made decisions. While they may seem like people that shouldn't fucking have money, they do. And that's because they made certain decisions that required risk and it paid off. So whenever you're in a decision making process, again, weigh the odds. Is it more expensive to pay or take the route of growth? Or is it more expensive to wake up 5 years from now and wonder why nothing has changed? When you put your mindset, or you put your mind in this frame of reference, the decision becomes pretty clear that the pain of growth is the correct way. And if you're not seeking growth, then you probably wouldn't even be put in this position to even, see what growth is. So that's all I got to say for you guys. If you guys like these kinds of videos, I'll do more of them per week. I'm actually going to do an actual podcast once a week on this main channel. And if you guys are interested in working with me, I do a one-to-one container. Like I said, I'm an esoteric advisor for high-performing entrepreneurs. If you're interested in anything like that, click the link below and we'll see if it's a good fit. If not, I have more resources for you guys. I have a free newsletter and other things of that nature. So click the link below and see what works out for you. And I'll see you guys in the next video.